Hey everyone, welcome to the June edition of my monthly Flowcast. I'm Adam White, and this month I'm actually going to be doing something a little different than the previous month. I'm going to be covering what I think are the top contributions and top posts of the month, and then I'm going to go through the rest. I usually do it chronologically, but this time I think it might be a little more valuable to do what I view as impactful releases. So obviously, Eric Smith is a busy guy. So this month he released 3 different versions of Datatable with a number of fixes and improvements. Most notably, he now added the ability for the custom property editor, when you're actually configuring the data table, to be able to reference automatically outputted variables from downstream or upstream actions. So instead of manually specifying variables, you can now just automatically reference them, which is a great time saver, and it'll make your flows a lot cleaner. So before I move on, I did just want to call out one thing, and that everything on Unofficial SF is community made and open source. So what does that mean to you? That means you need to do your own due diligence when you install these actions, right? So you can't assume everything has gone through the gauntlet of testing and it matches and mirrors everything about your org. So if you have developers, have them look at the code. All the code here is typically available on GitHub, or if we're referencing other packages, keep in mind that there's no expressed warranty or anything like that with these actions. So do your own due diligence as much as you can. Next up is a package released by Alex Edelstein that allows you to convert process builders to flows. Now, what this did was it basically looked at the newer features from record triggered flows, like isChanged, to map the features that were in Process Builder to Flow. So now there's a few more features that were brought over to Flow. So this post, it does a great job of walking you through how to use it. There's a video, and then there's step-by-step instructions and some other notes and dependencies that you need to install first before using this. Next up is a pretty nifty action called Datamapper that has a series of actions that let you convert Web JSON to Salesforce Flow objects. So for you admins out there, this basically allows you to make a call out to some endpoint somewhere out there in the worldwide interweb and have it spit back results, and you can actually do things based off those results. So one of the examples Alex Edelstein gives here is getting an exchange rate for, I think it's the Australian dollar, and getting a real-time currency conversion rate. So an open API that he is basically using to get a real-time currency conversion for the user. So on the flip side of the equation, Jack Pond released a new action called Webhook to Flow, and a series of instructions with a nice instructional video that allows you to connect external systems into Salesforce. One of the examples he gives is a Slack action that will create a note to an associated contact record. So he walks through several steps, like how to create Apex-defined types and how to map the different values. So definitely check that out if you're into potentially integrating Slack with Flow, for example. And so now I'm going to be covering some of the other actions, components, and articles that we've been posting on Unofficial SF and some other places online. Andy Anderson, who is a technical architect at Salesforce, has created a best practices document for creating invocable actions. So he actually goes through and shows you sample code, things to not do, things to do, and goes through some of the scenarios where you might run into issues through bad code. So definitely check this out if you're interested in creating more invocable actions. Rob Fay has gone through and explained how you can embed flows in LWCs and get proper resizing. He talks through the iframe approach and some of the challenges associated with it when you're using resizable windows, and then goes through a variety of solutions to address the problem. So now for a little shameless self-plug, I actually published 2 different articles, one on the Salesforce Architects blog and then the other one on the admin blog, around best practices in Flow. So one of them is a little more architect focused and a little shorter. The other one is a full-fledged ultimate guide to best practices and standards, where I talk about all kinds of things like invocable actions, documentation, usage of subflows, and common mistakes, and I even include a helpful checklist at the very end to kind of run through some scenarios for yourself after you wrap up a flow. Ralph Braun made usage of Unofficial SF's wiki feature to create an article explaining how you use the edit Quip action to insert text after a certain part of a Quip document. So he walks through how to do that with this edit Quip document action. So I debated heavily on whether or not to include this in the very beginning because for me it's a big UX improvement, but Alex Edelstein basically announced that Flow Combo Box now can utilize automatic output references in actions and components that utilize custom property editors. So now instead of manually creating your variable in your actions in order to be able to reference them in a CPE, you can now do so. Now actually you don't even need to do that. You can just reference them automatically. So things like subflow outputs you can reference in CPEs now. So a little bit of unofficial documentation for you guys, but Alex Edelstein posted a number of changes to the number and currency official components in summer 21. So if you guys use those in any of your flows, make sure to check this out for some clarifications. Eric Smith shared a video of his that he created for one of his London Calling presentations, which is a user group meetup in London, where he highlights 10 ways to get creative with Lightning components. Most of these are ones that he's contributed to or are freely available on Unofficial SF. Amit Singh, aka SFDCPanther, created an article that explains how to create a rich text area input in Flow using LWC. Sean Dukes has created an article sharing how he accomplished building a declarative time picker with zero code. One of the challenges with Flow is it doesn't have a time variable type yet, so he talks through how he solved that challenge with his solution. And with that, thank you guys for joining. I'll see you guys next month for the July edition.